You're listening to Midwest Coven Cast presents Weekend Reads. I'm Marilyn of Midwest Coven Cast, and each week I will be reading to you, dear listeners, occult works that are in the public domain. All of this I do with the goal of helping each of us grow in our knowledge and practices. Here in Season 1, we will be making our way through Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy or magic, published in 1531. I hope you enjoy this week's installment. Chapter 22. How inferior things are subjected to superior bodies, and how the bodies, the actions, and dispositions of men are ascribed to stars and signs. It is manifest that all things inferior are subject to the superior, and after a manner, as saith Proclus, they are one in the other. Viz., in inferiors are superior, and in superiors are inferior. So in the heaven are things terrestrial, but as in their cause, and in a celestial manner. And in the earth are things celestial, but after a terrestrial manner, as in an effect. So we say that there be here certain things which are solary, and certain which are lunary, in which the sun and moon make a strong impression of their virtues. Whence it is that these kind of things receive more operations and properties, like to those of the stars and signs which they are under. So we know that solary things respect the heart and head by reason, that Leo is the house of the sun, and Aries the exaltation of the sun. So things under Mars are good for the head, and secrets by reason of Aries and Scorpio. Hence, they whose senses fail, and heads ache by reason of drunkenness, find cold water and vinegar good to bathe the head and secrets. But in reference to these, it is necessary to know how man's body is distributed to planets and signs. Know, therefore, that according to the doctrine of the Arabians, the sun rules over the brain, heart, the thigh, the marrow, the right eye, and the spirit. Also the tongue, the mouth, and the rest of the organs of the senses, as well internal as external. Also the hands, feet, legs, nerves, and the power of imagination. That Mercury rules over the spleen, stomach, bladder, womb, and right ear, as also the faculty of the common sense. That Saturn rules over the liver and fleshy part of the stomach. That Jupiter rules over the abdomen and navel, whence it is written by the ancients that the effigy of the navel was laid up in the temple of Jupiter Hammon. Also, some attribute to him the ribs, breast, bowels, blood, arms, and the right hand and left ear, and the powers natural. And some set Mars over the blood, the veins, the kidneys, the bag of the gall, the buttocks, the back, motion of the sperm, and the irascible power. Again, they set Venus over the kidneys, the secrets, the womb, the seed, and concupiscible power, as also the flesh, fat, belly, breast, navel, and the venereal parts and such as serve thereto. Also the os sacrum, the backbone, and loins, as also the head and the mouth, with which they give a kiss as a token of love. Now the moon, although she may challenge the whole body, and every member thereof, according to the variety of the signs, yet more particularly they ascribe to her the brain, lungs, marrow of the backbone, the stomach, the menstrual, and the excretory parts, and the left eye, as also the power of increasing. But Hermes saith that there are 7 holes in the head of an animal distributed to the 7 planets, viz., the right ear to Saturn, the left to Jupiter, the right nostril to Mars, the left to Venus, the right eye to the Sun, the left to the Moon, and the mouth to Mercury. The several signs also of the zodiac take care of their members. So Aries governs the head and face, Taurus the neck, Gemini the arms and shoulders, Cancer the breast, lungs, stomach, and arms, Leo the heart, stomach, liver, and back, Virgo the bowels and bottom of the stomach, Libra the kidneys, thighs, and buttocks, Scorpius the secrets, Sagittarius, the thighs and groins, Capricornus, the knees, Aquarius, the legs and shins, Pisces, the feet. Note: the several parts of the physical body, it will be seen, run in order from the head to the feet in their correspondence with the 12 signs or houses of the zodiac, from Aries, the first house, to Pisces, the 12th, and last. The zodiac as a whole, in symbolizing all parts of a complete man, typifies a perfect celestial being known as the grand solar man. And as the triplicities of these signs answer one the other and agree in celestials, so also they agree in the members, which is sufficiently manifest by experience, because with the coldness of the feet, the belly and breast are affected, which members answer the same triplicity. Whence it is, if a medicine be applied to the one, it helps the other, as by warming of the feet, the pain of the belly ceaseth. Remember, therefore, this order, and know that things which are under any one of the planets have a certain particular aspect or inclination to those members that are attributed to that planet, and especially to the houses and exaltations thereof. For the rest of the dignities, as those triplicities and marks and face are of little account in this. Upon this account, therefore, peony, balm, clove gillyflowers, citron peel, sweet marjoram, cinnamon, saffron, lignum, aloes, frankincense, amber, musk, and myrrh help the head and heart, by reason of the sun and Aries and Leo. So doth ribwort, the herb of Mars, help the head and secrets, by reason of Aries and Scorpio, and so of the rest. Note on punctuation. We find all semicolons used in this sentence in the English edition of 1651. Mr. Henry Morley, in his Life of Cornelius Agrippa, London, 1856, Volume 1, page 140, in a note referring to a quotation he makes there from the Latin edition of Agrippa of 1531, says, "I have preserved the punctuation in this passage to show the use of the colon before semicolons were invented." The passage Mr. Morley quotes from, the Latin edition of 1531, De Occulta Philosophia, Libri Tris, Antwerp, Belgium, one book only of which was published of the three, contains 6 colons, whereas the English edition of 1651, see etching for title page, also used by Mr. Morley, and published complete 120 years later, contains none. This indicates apparently the general period when semicolons were invented and came into use. The characters of punctuation are supposed to have been generally invented and introduced near the close of the 15th century by Aldus Manutius, a noted printer and publisher of Venice. The semicolon, as above, originated later, between 1531 and 1651. Further, the em dash, as now used, is of comparatively modern introduction. I fail to find a single em dash in the English edition of Agrippa of 1651, though 3 em dashes were occasionally used before quotations from the poets. 8 years later, in 1659, I find the 2 em dash used in the second edition of Lilly's Christian Astrology, page 60, thus: "His least, em dash 30. As this was an ordinary paragraph of itself, it shows they did not at the time use the em dash, but were evolving towards it. The truth regarding punctuation is that it has slowly and steadily evolved, especially since the art of printing, to its present status. The object of punctuation, primarily, is to present a writer's thought clearly, concisely, and correctly, by pointing out its salient words, using the marks, like an artist does his hues, to give prominence and pith thereto. Also, all things under Saturn conduce to sadness and melancholy, those under Jupiter to mirth and honor, those under Mars to boldness, contention, and anger, those under the Sun to glory, victory, and courage, those under Venus to love, lust, and concupiscence, those under Mercury to eloquence, those under the Moon to a common life. Also, all the actions and dispositions of men are distributed according to the planets. For Saturn governs old men, monks, melancholy men, and hidden treasures, and those things which are obtained with long journeys and difficulty. But Jupiter governs those that are religious, prelates, kings, and dukes, and such kind of gains that are got lawfully. Mars rules over barbers, chirurgeons, physicians, sergeants, butchers, executioners, all that make fires, bakers, and soldiers, who are everywhere called martial men. Also do the other stars signify their office, as they are described in the books of astrologers. Chapter 23. How we shall know what stars natural things are under, and what things are under the sun, which are called Solary. Now it is very hard to know what star or sign everything is under. Yet it is known through the imitation of their rays, or motion, or figure of the superiors. Also some of them are known by their colors and odors. Also some by the effects of their operations, answering to some stars. So then, solary things, or things under the power of the sun, are amongst elements, the lucid flame, and the humours, the purer blood and spirit of life, amongst tastes, that which is quick, mixed with sweetness, amongst metals, gold, by reason of its splendour, and its receiving that from the sun, which makes it cordial. And amongst stones, they which resemble the rays of the sun, by their golden sparklings, as doth the glittering stone Aides, which hath power against the falling sickness and poisons. So also the stone which is called the eye of the sun, being of a figure like to the apple of the eye, from the middle whereof shines forth a ray, it comforts the brain, and strengthens the sight. So the carbuncle, which shines by night, hath a virtue against all airy and vaporous poison. So the chrysolite stone, which is of a light green colour, is which, when it is held against the sun, there shines forth a golden star, and this comforts those parts that serve for breathing, and helps those that be asthmatical. And if it be bored through, and the whole filled with the mane of an ass, and bound to the left arm, it drives away idle imaginations, and melancholy fears, and puts away foolishness. So the stone called iris, which is like crystal in colour, being often found with 6 corners, when under some roof, part of it is held against the rays of the sun, and the other part is held in the shadow, it gathers the rays of the sun into itself, which, whilst it sends them forth, by way of reflection, makes a rainbow appear on the opposite wall. Also the stone of heliotrope, green like the jasper or emerald, beset with red specks, makes a man constant, renowned, and famous. Also it conduceth to long life, and the virtue of it indeed is most wonderful upon the beams of the sun, which it is said to turn into blood, i.e., to appear of the colour of blood, as if the sun were eclipsed, viz., when it is joined to the juice of a herb of the same name, and be put into a vessel of water. There is also another virtue of it, more wonderful, and that is upon the eyes of men, whose sight it doth so dim and dazzle, that it doth not suffer him that carries it to see it. And this it doth not do without the help of the herb of the same name, which also is called heliotrope, i.e., following the sun. These virtues doth Albertus Magnus and William of Paris confirm in their writings. The stone hyacinth also hath a virtue from the sun against poisons and pestiferous vapours. It makes him that carries it to be safe and acceptable. It conduceth also to riches and wit. It strengthens the heart, being held in the mouth, it doth wonderfully cheer up the mind. Also there is the stone pyrophilus, of a red mixture, which Albertus Magnus saith Aesculapius makes mention of in one of his epistles unto Octavius Augustus, saying that there is a certain poison so wonderfully cold, which preserves the heart of man, being taken out, from burning, so that if for any time it be put into the fire, it is turned into a stone, and this is that stone which is called pyrophilus, from the fire. It hath a wonderful virtue against poison, and it makes him that carries it to be renowned and dreadful to his enemies. But, above all, that stone is most solary, which Apollonius is reported to have found, and which is called Pantara, which draws other stones to it, as the lodestone doth iron, and is most powerful against all poisons. It is called by some Pantherus, because it is spotted, like the beast called the panther. It is therefore also called Pantocras, because it contains all colors, and Aaron calls it Evanthum. There are also other solary stones, as the topazius, chrysoprasus, the rubine, and pelagius. So also is oripigmentum, and things of a golden color, and very lucid. Amongst plants also and trees, those are solary, which turn towards the sun, as the marigold, and those which fold in their leaves when the sun is near upon setting. But when it riseth unfold their leaves by little and little. The lote tree also is solary, as is manifest by the figure of the fruit and leaves. So is peony, celandine, balm, ginger, gentian, and dittany, and vervain, which is of use in prophesying, and expiations, as also driving away evil spirits. The bay tree is also consecrated to Phoebus. So is the cedar, the palm tree, the ash, the ivy, and vine, and whatsoever repel poisons and lightnings, and those things which never fear the extremities of the winter. Solary also are mint, mastic, zadori, saffron, balsam, amber, musk, yellow honey, lignum aloes, cloves, cinnamon, calamus, aromaticus, pepper, frankincense, sweet marjoram, also libanatus, which Orpheus calls the sweet perfume of the sun. Also amongst animals, those are called solary, which are magnanimous, courageous, ambitious of victory and renown, as the lion, king of the beasts, the crocodile, the spotted wolf, the ram, the boar, the bull, king of the herd, which was by the Egyptians at Heliopolis dedicated to the sun, which they called Verities. And an ox was consecrated to Apis in Memphis, and in Herminthus a bull by the name of Pathus. The wolf also was consecrated to Apollo and Latona. Also the beast called baboon is solary, which 12 times in a day, viz. Every hour, barks, and in the time of equinoctium micturateth 12 times every hour, and same also it doth in the night, whence the Egyptians did engrave him upon their fountains. Note, Mr. Morley notes here, in reference to the baboon, that Hermes Trismegistus, or a writer in his name, taught that the common division of the time was suggested to man by the habits of the sacred animal. Life of Henry Cornelius Agrippa, Volume 1, page 132. Also amongst birds, these are solary, the phoenix, being but one of that kind, and the eagle, the queen of birds, also the vulture, the swan, and those which sing at the rising sun, and, as it were, call upon it to rise, as the cock and crow, also the hawk, which, because it in the divinity of the Egyptians is an emblem of the spirit and light, is by Porphyrius reckoned amongst the solary birds. Moreover, all such things as have some resemblance of the works of the sun, as worms shining in the night, and the beetle. Also, according to Apius's interpretation, such things whose eyes are changed according to the course of the sun are accounted solary, and things which come of them. And amongst fish, the sea calf is chiefly solary, who doth resist lightning. Also shellfish, and the fish called pulmo, both of which shine in the night, and the fish called stella. Note, stella, a star, starfish. The asterius, or sea star. One peculiarity of this radiate animal is that so long as it has any one of its usual 5 points remaining, it will restore any others that may have been destroyed. For his parching heat, and the fish called strombi, note, strombi, strombite, a mollusk of the genus Strombus, possessing a spiral shell with broad wing-like lip, ordinarily known as a sea snail, that follow their king and Margari. Note, Margari, Margaret, Margaritaceae, pearlfish, the pearl oyster, which also have a king, and being dried are hardened into a stone of golden color. Chapter 24. What things are lunary, or under the power of the moon? These things are lunary, amongst the elements, viz., the earth, then the water, as well that of the sea as of the rivers, and all moist things, as the moisture of trees and animals, especially they which are white, as the whites of eggs, fat, sweat, phlegm, and the superfluities of bodies, amongst tastes, salt, and insipid, amongst metals, silver, amongst stones, crystal, and silver, marcasite, and all those stones that are white and green. Also the stone selenite, i.e. the moon lunary, shining from a white body, with a yellow brightness, imitating the motion of the moon, by having in it the figure of the moon, which daily increaseth or decreaseth, as doth the moon. Also pearls, which are generated in shells of fishes, and stalactites, formed from the droppings of water. Also the beryl, or aquamarine, greenish, and six-sided. Amongst plants and trees, these are lunary, as the selenotropion, which turns towards the moon, as doth the heliotropion towards the sun, and the palm tree, which sends forth a bough at every rising of the new moon. Hyssop also, and rosemary, agnus castus, and the olive tree are lunary. Also the herb chinosta, which increaseth and decreaseth with the moon, viz., in substance and number of leaves, not only in sap, but in virtue, which indeed is in some sort common to all plants, except onions, which last are under the influence of Mars, and have contrary properties. As amongst flying things, the Saturnine bird, called a quail, is a great enemy to the moon and sun. Lunary animals are such as delight to be in man's company, and such as do naturally excel in love or hatred, as all kinds of dogs. The chameleon also is lunary, which always assumes a color according to the variety of the color of the object, as the moon changeth her nature according to the variety of the signs which it is found in. Lunary also are swine, hinds, goats, and all those animals whatsoever that observe and imitate the motion of the moon, as the baboon and the panther, which is said to have a spot upon her shoulder, like the moon, increasing into a roundness, and having horns that bend inwards. Cats also are lunary, whose eyes become greater or less according to the course of the moon. And those things which are of like nature, as catamenial blood, of which are made wonderful and strange things by magicians. The civet cat also, changing her sex with the moon, being obnoxious to diverse sorceries, and all animals that live in water as well as on land, as otters, and such as prey upon fish. Also all monstrous beasts, such as those without manifest seed, are equivocally generated, as mice, which sometimes seem to be generated of the putrefaction of the earth. Amongst fowl, geese, ducks, didipers, and all kind of watery fowl, as prey upon fish, as the heron, and those that are equivocally produced, as wasps, of the carcasses of horses, bees of the putrefaction of cows, small flies, and putrefied wine, and beetles of the flesh of asses. But most lunary of all is the two-horned beetle, horned after the manner of a bull, which digs under cow dung, and there remains for the space of 28 days, in which time the moon measures the whole zodiac. And in the 29th day, when it thinks there will be a conjunction of their brightness, it opens the dung and casts it into water, from whence then come beetles. Among fish, these are lunary. Ilurus, whose eyes are changed according to the course of the moon, and whatsoever observes the motion of the moon, as the tortoise, the cynus, crabs, oysters, cockles, and frogs. Chapter 25. What things are Saturnine, or under the power of Saturn? Saturnine things amongst elements are earth and also water. Amongst humours, black colour, that is moist, as well natural as adventitious, addest choler excepted. Amongst tastes, sour, tart, and deadlike. Amongst metals, lead and gold, by reason of its weight, and the golden marcasite. Amongst stones, the onyx, the ziazah, the commonius, the sapphire, the brown jasper, the chalcedon, the lodestone, and all dark, weighty, earthy things. Amongst plants and trees, the daffodil, dragon's wort, rue, cumin, hellebore, the tree from whence benzoin comes, mandrake, opium, and those things which are never sown, and never bear fruit, and those which bring forth berries of a dark colour, and black fruit, as the black fig tree, the pine tree, the cypress tree, and a certain tree used at burials, which never springs afresh with berries, rough, of a bitter taste, of a strong smell, of a black shadow, yielding a most sharp pitch, bearing a most unprofitable fruit, never dies with age, deadly, and dedicated to Pluto. As the herb passflower, note, pass, from the Latin word passus, meaning step, pace, or right of going foremost precedence. Thus, the passflower means a plant blooming ahead of other flowers. A coordinate word is pascha, meaning to pass over, giving the name Passover, or the feast of Easter. Pasch comes from the means of the same as pascha, and we read of the pasch egg, stained and given to children at Easter, as also the pasch flower of Easter. The Easter flower was also known as the pasch flower, paschal flower, and pasch flower. Pasch and pasch meaning Easter, and paschal pertaining thereto. This indicates that the pasch flower in the above text is identical with the pasch flower of the genus Anemone, having large purple flowers, which usually bloom about Easter, stepping foremost in their order of blooming as regarding other flowers. Agrippa also makes mention here of the passflower as being an emblem of mourning, as the ancients used it to strew the graves before they put the dead bodies into them. While the ancients may have held the passflower as sacred to the rites of burial, the sense of its use as the Easter flower would indicate that it was also used as an emblem of great joy, and signified a new life for the departed through a new birth or resurrection. A true understanding of the meaning of the feast of the Passover or Easter will show this. Easter Day is always the first Sunday after the 14th day of the calendar moon, which comes upon or next after the 21st of March. So that if the 14th day comes on a Sunday, Easter Day will be the Sunday after. Easter corresponds to the Passover of the Jews, and most nations still give it this name under the various forms of Pascha, Pasch, Pac, or Pasch. The feast of the Passover was instituted by the Jews to commemorate the providential escape of the Hebrews in Egypt when God, smiting the firstborn of the Egyptians, passed over the houses of the Israelites, which were marked with the blood of the paschal lamb. With the Christian Church, it is observed to commemorate the resurrection of Christ. The old High Germans celebrated the day in honor of Ostara, the goddess of light and spring, whence they called April, the month of or following Easter, Ostermoneth. The Anglo-Saxons called the same month Eastermoneth, from Easter. Their name for the same goddess, and their paschal feast, Eastrin or Easter. March was named from Mars, the god of war, and was originally the first month of the year, as it was in March that the sun came to Aries, the first house of the zodiac, emblemized by the lamb, as the ram was the first animal to forage for food and procreate, and the sun entering the first house was the vernal equinox, or the first day of spring, the first season of the fruitful year, and therefore March, being the Advent month of light and fecundity, was esteemed as the first month of the year. The first full month of light in spring, when every fetter of winter was riven, and spring was opened wide and fixed, was April, from aperio, to open, and also from the Greek word aphros, foam, from which Venus was said to have sprung, and hence this month was sacred to her. No doubt Ostara and Easter were identical with her. As Easter Day falls the first Sunday after the 14th day of the calendar moon, which comes upon or next after the 21st of March, Easter Day usually comes in April and dates its arrival from the aspect of the moon to the arbitrary date of March 21st. This is a very significant fact, and is fully confirmed as such when we find the 21st of March is the usually precise date when the Earth, in its annual movement around the Sun, enters Libra, causing the Sun to apparently enter the opposite house or sign of Aries, ending winter and ushering in spring. For the first day of spring always comes when the Sun enters Aries. Aries is the house of the Lamb, and with the birth of spring, the Lamb is resurrected or brought to life anew. While winter is dead, the sun having passed over the meridian line between winter and spring. Further, the word Easter corresponds with Aries, for it springs from the word east, and Aries is the eastern part of the zodiac. Therefore, March 21st is the true Eastern day. But the celebration of the return of spring is fitly deferred until the first Sunday after about a lunar cycle, so as to partake of the first fruits of the spring season. In view of the foregoing, therefore, the ancients used the past flower at the grave as an emblem of the passing over of the winter of old age and the resurrection of the spirit to eternal light and immortal youth. Used as such, the Pasch flower, typified joy and hope, with which they were wont, anciently, to strew the graves before they put the dead bodies into them. Wherefore it was lawful to make their garlands at feasts, with all herbs and flowers besides Pasch flowers, because it was mournful, and not conducing to mirth. Also all creeping animals living apart, and solitary, nightly, sad, contemplative, dull, covetous, fearful, melancholy, that take much pain, slow, that feed grossly, and such as eat their young. Of these kinds, therefore, are the mole, the wolf, the ass, the toad, the cat, the hog, the bear, the camel, the basilisk, the hare, the ape, the dragon, the mule, all serpents and creeping things, scorpions, ants, and such things as proceed from putrefaction in the earth, in water, or in the ruins of houses, as mice, and many sorts of vermin. Amongst birds, those are Saturnine, which have long necks and harsh voices, as cranes, ostriches, and peacocks, which are dedicated to Saturn and Juno. Also the screech owl, the horned owl, the bat, the lapwing, the crow, the quail, which is the most envious bird of all. Amongst fishes, the eel, living apart from all other fish, the lamprey, the dogfish, which devours her young, also the tortoise, oysters, cockles, to which may be added sea sponges, and all such things as come of them. Chapter 26. What things are under the power of Jupiter, and are called jovial? Things under Jupiter, amongst elements, are the air, amongst humours, blood, and the spirit of life. Also all things which respect the increase, nourishment, and vegetation of the life. Amongst tastes, such as are sweet and pleasant, amongst metals, tin, silver, and gold, by reason of their temperateness. Amongst stones, the hyacinth, beryl, sapphire, emerald, green jasper, and those of airy colors. Amongst plants and trees, sea green, garden basil, buglass, mace, spike mint, mastic, elecampane, the violet, darnel, henbane, the poplar tree, and those which are called lucky trees, as the oak, the asclepias, or horse chestnut, which is like an oak but much larger, the holm or holly tree, the beech tree, the hazel tree, the service tree, the white fig tree, the pear tree, the apple tree, the vine, the plum tree, the ash, the dogwood tree, and the olive tree, and also oil tree. Also all manner of corn, as barley and wheat, also raisins, licorice, sugar, and all such things whose sweetness is manifest and subtle, partaking somewhat of an astringent and sharp taste, as are nuts, almonds, pineapples, filberts, pistachio nuts, roots of peony, myrobalan, rhubarb, and manna. Orpheus adds storax. Amongst animals, such as have some stateliness and wisdom in them, and those which are mild, well trained up, and of good dispositions, as the hart and elephant, and those which are gentle as sheep and lambs. Amongst birds, those that are of the temperate complexion, as hens, together with the yolk of their eggs. Also the partridge, the pheasant, the swallow, the cuckoo, and the stork and pelican, birds given to a kind of devotion, which are emblems of gratitude. The eagle is dedicated to Jupiter. She is the ensign of emperors, and an emblem of justice and clemency. Amongst fish, the dolphin, the fish called inkia, or anchovy, and the sheath, or sheatfish, by reason of his devoutness. Chapter 27. What things are under the power of Mars, and are called martial? These things are martial. Amongst elements, fire, together with all adust and sharp things. Amongst humours, choler, also bitter tastes, tart, and burning the tongue, and causing tears. Amongst metals, iron, and red brass, and all fiery red and sulphurous things. Amongst stones, the diamond, lodestone, the bloodstone, the jasper, the stone that consists of diverse kinds, and the amethyst. Amongst plants and trees, hellebore, garlic, euphorbium, castanea, ammoniac, radish, the laurel or sweet bay, wolfsbane, scammony, and all such as are poisonous by reason of too much heat, and those which are beset round about with prickles, or by touching the skin burn it, prick it, or make it swell, as cardus, the nettle, crowfoot, and such as being eaten cause tears, as onions, ascalonia, leeks, mustard seed, and all thorny trees, and the dogwood tree, which is dedicated to Mars, and all such animals as are warlike, ravenous, bold, and of clear fancy, as the horse, mule, goat, kid, wolf, leopard, and wild ass. Serpents also, and dragons, full of displeasure and poison. Also all such as are offensive to men, as gnats, flies, and the baboon, by reason of his anger. All birds that are ravenous devour flesh and break bones, as the eagle, the falcon, the hawk, and the vulture, and those which are called the fatal birds, as the horn owl, the screech owl, castrels, and kites, and such as are hungry and ravenous, and such as make a noise in their swallowing, as crows, daws, and the pie, which above all the rest is dedicated to Mars. And amongst fishes, the pike, the barbel, the forkfish, the fish that hath horns like a ram, the sturgeon, and the glaucus, all which are great devourers and ravenous. Chapter 28. What things are under the power of Venus, and are called venereal? These things are under Venus. Amongst elements, air and water. Amongst humours, phlegm with blood, spirit, and seed. Amongst tastes, those which are sweet, unctuous, and delectable. Amongst metals, silver and brass, both yellow and red. Amongst stones, the beryl, chrysolite, emerald, sapphire, green jasper, carnelian, the stone aetites, the lazuli stone, coral, and all of a fair various white and green color. Amongst plants and trees, the vervain, violet, maidenhair, valerian, which by the Arabians is called fu, and tithymol, for its fragrant and sweet smell. Also thyme, the gun ladnum, ambergris, sanders or red sandalwood, coriander, and all sweet perfumes, and delightful and sweet fruits, as sweet pears, figs, pomegranates, which the poets say were in Cyprus first sown by Venus. Also the rose of Lucifer was dedicated to her, also the myrtle tree of Hesperus. Moreover, all luxurious, delicious animals, and of a strong love, as dogs, conies, odorous sheep, and goats, both female and male, which generate sooner than any other animal. Also the bull for his disdain, and the calf for his wantonness. Amongst birds, the swan, the wagtail, the swallow, the pelican, the burgunder, which are very loving to their young. Also the crow, and the pigeon, which is dedicated to Venus, and the turtle dove, one whereof was commanded to be offered at the purification after bringing forth. The sparrow also was dedicated to Venus, which was commanded in the law to be used in the purification, after the leprosy, a martial disease, than which nothing was of more force to resist it. Also the Egyptians called the eagle by the name of Venus, because she never fails to answer the call of her mate. Amongst fishes, these are venereal, the lustful card, the lecherous gilthead, the whiting for her love of her young, and the crab fighting for his mate. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Midwest Coven Cast Presents Weekend Reads. Join me next week for the next installment as we continue through Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy or magic. For more information about Midwest Coven Cast, you can visit our website at midwestcovencast.com. You can also follow us on social media at Midwest Coven Cast on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, or at Midwest Coven on Twitter. We hope to see you there. Until next time, Coven, blessed be.